Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Rainier Moquete. I'm the CEO for CyberWarrior.com. It is an absolute pleasure to be here in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month and having an opportunity to share the stage with a group of people that not only do I admire professionally, but also personally because of the commitment that they have with the community, with giving back. And I think that these folks exemplify the things that we're going to be talking about today in terms of how do we leverage our roles as executives and how do we leverage our capacity, even as someone who's earlier in their career, to move the needle forward on behalf of our community. And so, without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce our panelists. Liz, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So Liz Augusto, I'm at BNY Mellon. I'm the global COO for the information security division. I run basically the business of cybersecurity, been there for about 8 years. Basically, my role is, I like to just easily describe it as, if you think about like an orchestra conductor giving or guiding sort of a symphony of cybersecurity measures to safeguard our organization, our assets, and how to mitigate risk. So basically just running the business of cyber, including and focusing on financial accountability, expense management, employee engagement, and my passion, which is DE&I, right? Making sure that we close the opportunity divide and create pathways and opportunities for folks in our field. So that's pretty much it for me.
Thanks, Liz. Omar Cruz.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Pleasure to be here today, and thank you, Rainier, for the invitation for today's event. My role at CISA is pretty dynamic. I've started with my career in incident response, and over the years, I've transitioned to multiple facets activities such as project management and program management. So most recently, I completed the role of coordinator for a CISA-wide or agency-wide implementation and transition to a brand new incident response platform that will enable us to do incident response across the federal government, critical infrastructure, and all of that is part of a new legislation that was just passed 2 years ago. So in that role, basically, I led those efforts across the agency. So I'm pretty happy that we got to accomplish that.
Thank you, Omar. Jason, my friend, take us on, please.
You are certainly digging for the bottom of the barrel when I was here, but no, all joking aside, I'm the global head of all technology exercises for Wells Fargo Bank. So that includes data center resiliency, tabletops, cloud, cyber exercise, cyber resiliency, infiltration, any form of exercise that's from a technological standpoint has to run through my organization. And my second job is, like Liz, DEI champion. It's all about moving the needle forward. It's all about trying to see progress and not mistaking movement for progress.
Awesome. I think that not mistaking movement for progress is words to live by, and one that I often share with young professionals. I think that a lot of time people have this notion that being busy means that you're being productive, and I think that that's far from truth, particularly when it comes to D&I initiatives. More broadly, I'd love to just dive right into it. I'd love to hear, what are some of the things that you're doing within your organizations in order to maximize the effectiveness of your diversity initiatives?
So one of the things, it's interesting because when I came in, one of the things I didn't mention was when I joined the cybersecurity field 8 years ago, I came in with a complete different mindset, given that I didn't have a technology or computer science background, engineering background. My foundation was more on risk-based and things like that, marketing and such. So coming in, I wanted to take a really creative approach to how we target, and how we go after and try to recruit diverse talent, because it is a unique way to do it, especially for everybody on this call. You know how hard it is to recruit and try to get cyber talent. There's a lot of competition. And also, it's not like you're recruiting for a finance person where you can just go, you cold call them and say, hey, we want you to do so-and-so. So a lot of it is awareness, right? A lot of it is, putting myself out there in service to talk to people about the exciting field and all the opportunities, because there's so many opportunities. So one of the things is I attend a lot of conferences. I developed this sort of customized by service, like security marketing roadmap and brochure that, I share with a ton of people whenever they're interested and they say, I want to go into cyber, but I don't know what. It helps you sort of, take you around sort of like understanding what cybersecurity is and what services you can be a part of, irrespective of your background. There's a ton of stuff, just training programs internally, working with organizations like, what is it? High Tech, Year Up. I want to say 7 years ago, I started working with Year Up to develop a cybersecurity track. And that was amazing because for those of you who know anything about Year Up, it's, sort of development program to provide opportunities for folks in underrepresented areas. And so it was the first cybersecurity track. It was kind of rogue at the time because people were like, oh my God, if we can get this going, then this is amazing. Anybody can join, we can all learn. So that's just, some of the things that we're doing. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more from my fellow panelists, but I'll stop talking about that. But I'd love to hear what others have to say.
Yeah, I can jump in on that one, Rainier. One of the things that I've always noticed in my career is that the lack of Hispanic representation that we have. And when I was coming to my career, starting in 2005, I was like the only Hispanic. And so I've always had this passion of giving back, doing outreach activities, right? So as a hiring manager, when I have to go out there and do hiring, the activities that I've enjoyed the most is going out there to the colleges, universities. We have this program at CISA, DHS Core Scholarship for Service, where we actually promote this program to college students that we, the government, will pay to complete their educational degrees if they can come up and work for the government. So, relating to them, my struggle is coming up, obviously. I've also enjoyed going to vets hiring events, because I'm a former vet as well, U.S. Marine Corps. And so not only helping them understand here's what the job in cybersecurity, but also the passion and the soul behind it, right? Because we can leverage platforms, technologies, LinkedIn, and other mechanisms that make our interaction more innovative. But again, my personal preference has always been, that in-person approach, because at that moment you can make it more relatable, and because they can relate to you. And oftentimes, and I would say most of the times, the struggles that any of us or the panelists faced, they're also facing. So to help them understand how we overcame those obstacles and sort of lend them a hand, that's the activity that I've seen to go a long ways in terms of getting people inspired.
So for me, I've done a lot of similar things, helped create some forums, some approaches for companies that I worked for to help bring people in. I speak in a number of different organizations. Haven't spoken at High Tech. Actually, no, that's not true. I did. Also did at SHIP. Last year, did a couple. I think I'm going to speak again this year. But aside from doing that and making myself available, answering questions, talking to people about cybersecurity, but also about coaching, mentorship, sponsorship, and the differences that lie within that, I also like to leverage my organization. We all work for large organizations, whether it's the government, whether it's the private sector. And those are big, huge, enormous conglomerates. And they have a lot of leverage. They have a lot of pull. So I like to challenge from an internal standpoint, using my platform to say, well, what are we doing? How are we doing it? How are we moving the needle? And if what they're saying doesn't make sense to me or doesn't help me see how we're actually moving the needle, then I challenge it. And I continue to challenge it until we start seeing results that are beneficial to the cause.
I love that. Yeah.
So with that in mind, Jason, because I think that's the goal, right? And everybody's trying to leverage these pieces. I think that as people of color, that's something that you innately do because you want to help others. However, in order for us to move the needle, we also have to motivate our peers to do the same. And so that, I think, is one of the more challenging things. And I guess my question to you all would be, if you had 30 minutes with your peers, or even 5 minutes with your peers, what would you say and do to motivate them, to convince them to take a stronger look add non-traditional students, non-traditional candidates?
So if you mind, I'll just kind of jump in. And so the way that I look at it is we've all gotten to a senior level by being ambitious, by being competitive. So I don't think you're going to need that much. If you look at the people that are on this panel, for me, they inspire me. I'm hearing about at Liz. I've known Liz for a little bit. She's an inspiration beyond inspiration, and she has given me cues without even realizing it. So she'll throw an idea out, like, oh, wait a minute, I could do that. Or I can modify it slightly that fits my organization, and I can achieve similar or maybe even better results. But she doesn't have to know that. She doesn't know that. She probably heard it for the first time literally seconds ago. But that's what we do. So it's not about trying to challenge someone. That's going to happen innately. We're all highly competitive. So it's more about how do we spread the knowledge about what's working to move the needle forward? Okay. That's where I think the difference is. A lot of times we pit ourselves against each other. You know, I'm Spanish and Cuban, so obviously we're the greatest, versus Liz is going to go, oh, but they're Kenya, me. So now all of a sudden it's very different. We have this innate competitiveness within our culture. And what we should be doing is saying, how do I help you? How do we move each other forward and move everyone forward? And I think if we can remove that component and bring it more to an inclusive, let's move everything properly forward, mapalante, that changes the dynamic. And that is I think, how we move forward. I'll stop now.
I was going to add to that. Yeah.
Liz? And how do you do that, Liz? And how do you do that, Omar?
Yeah.
Folks that perhaps don't share the same backgrounds that we have.
No, 100%. And thank you, Jason. So there's a saying, and I really live by this, that people don't care what you know until they know you care. There is not a person that I've ever worked with in any company. BNY Mellon is huge, and I've worked at Lehman, I've worked at Barclays, I've worked at small and large organizations. And one common thread has been my passion for diversity and inclusion and equity and parity, right? So if you know that someone is passionate, right, there's a respect there. And people start to listen. People start to pay attention. And then people start asking questions. And that's when when you get that attention, it's like, okay, now I have their attention. Now I'm going to, and I think just speaking to people about DE&I, diversity, inclusion, all of that, it's not a nice to have, right? It's a business imperative. For me, it's a mindset. So you have to make it a point to keep it at the forefront of discussions, talking about it all the time, lending your voice, supporting people. But more importantly, I would use my own story. Coming in from no background in technology, I did have a very good risk foundation, very good marketing, client service background, all of that stuff. But what I had is grit, and I had a belief in myself, and I know me, and I know what I stand for, and that wherever I go, it doesn't matter. I'm going to learn stuff. I'm going to figure it out somehow, and I have grit. And so if you take all of those pieces and put them all together, you've got someone who's confident, who's going to put in the work. And for me, this role is, like I said to you the other day, it's like passion meeting purpose, because I've never been more passionate in any career, in any field that I've ever worked in as I am here. And I feel like, oh my God, I have this incredible platform and I'm excited to share. And I think everybody in this panel, you can tell there's a passion, there's a purpose. We're here in service. And I think that speaks volumes. I think you kind of say that in your everyday without having to say it.
Thank you, Liz. That was very good. I appreciated that information. I'm going to answer Rainier with one example, an analogy. When I came out of the military, as a Marine sergeant, right after 9/11 in 2001, I went, of course, looking for a job, and they asked me, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a Marine sergeant," and I was hired on the spot. And I didn't understand what just happened, but I understood now what happened. They realize the value that a Marine brings to a corporate environment, from ethical views, from discipline, from commitment. And so when I saw that, I said, you know what? This organization instilled in me values that I typically probably wouldn't have. But because I came from the organization, corporate America recognized what I can bring to the table, and they hired me on the spot. And so the same thing happens to us as Hispanics. And let's touch on the grit part of it. our parents, first generation, instill in us that can-do attitude, that motivation to pursue your dreams, that
Yes.
passion for the work and that commitment. And so one time, a couple of years ago in 2008, I had a friend of mine who graduated college looking for a job. There was no jobs. The housing bubble had busted. There was no jobs anywhere. And I was talking to a fellow hiring manager who was trying to fulfill a position. And I gave him the resume. He said, "Oh my, why would I hire this person when I have 100 other resumes with bachelor's degrees?" And I said to this person, "You're going to get a couple of things: bilingual, fluent in Spanish and English, passion, dedication, commitment. You can hire anybody else, but you're not going to get those things." Right. And so that's what makes a difference, right? If I'm talking to my peers right now about how do we hire more Hispanics, I will say, let's go past the color of our skin and the accents that we may have. Let's focus on what they can contribute to the organization based on those core values that was instilled in them by their parents, which are now, in corporate America and even the government, they come in to fulfill a responsibility that typically you wouldn't get from any other backgrounds and cultures. So that's
if I could just add to that, Omar, because that was beautifully stated. I think one thing, if you think about cybersecurity is all about resilience.
Yeah.
Mic drop, right? I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
That's who we are as a person. That's it. Yeah. It's just like, tell me a Latino who doesn't have that, right? You take a kick it and you just keep going, and you're like, what else you got, right? So in this business, you need resilience. You need people that are committed. You need people that are gonna you go. I did it, and I still think about it. I don't know how I did it. I went from 18 to 500 people.
Yeah.
I did it, right? And it's almost like that you have to step into your strength. And if you go diverse, there's so much talent out there who's just wanting to go that extra mile, right?
And I love with that, Liz, also that thick skin that we come with. We still have our parents. Let's not forget our moms and that. We still have our moms, so we can make it anywhere.
So, it's a very interesting thing that you brought up. And for me, a lot of times people get ashamed of, I speak with an accent, right? Or they're ashamed of their story that brought them to where they are. But the thing about it is that if you speak with an accent, that means you know 2 languages, right? Look at the positive. The journey that brought you from where you started to where you are is profound. And no one else has that journey. No one else has that story. Celebrate it. Be proud of it. Be vulnerable to share it, because what happens is that diverse teams are 83% more impactful and effective than non-diverse teams. So having that diversity, cultural, ethnically, religious, genderly, whatever, celebrating that gives you a leg up. It's not an anchor. It doesn't weigh you down. It lets you soar with the eagles. And if you just turn your mind and change your mind to embrace it, the world opens up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's the case with many cultures that have emigrated into the US, particularly people that are like, first, second generation immigrants. You just, it takes a lot of courage for you to just pick up and move to a different part of the world. And if you go through that, you certainly have that grit, and you tend to pass that on to your kids. Yet, I think that one of the things that, and I think this is important for some of the early career professionals that are joining us today, is how do they connect those dots? How do they connect those dots? How do they do that? How do they, when they're sitting in a job interview, when they're thinking about how to communicate their value proposition on their LinkedIn profile, or in any other setting, how do you think they can go about connecting those dots to better tell their story, right? I mean, for example, you were giving a great example, Omar, with the commitment, and you had a chance to be a sponsor and a champion for someone. But for example, one of the things that I find is that, people that have a lot of siblings, well, many of us, grew up in a house filled with kids and cousins and things like that. Well, that takes a ton of finesse for you to navigate those kinds of situations. Single moms, for example. Oh my God. I mean, talk about a good project manager. Wow.
That's right.
Well, how do people go about connecting those dots?
I think, and I never did this early in my career. I didn't even think to do this in my career, but recognize that the rec is open, the job requisition is open because there's a need, there's a gap, there's a void, there's someone that needs a job to be done, task to be done, that's currently not being filled. So an easy question to ask is, what's the problem that you're facing? What deep skill set are you looking for that you need to actually make this job successful? And then once they tell you that, you could align everything in your background to that because they just gave you a map to success.
Yeah.
So really flipping the script, the whole thing about this is flipping the script in your mind. How do you position where you are to where you want to be, and changing your mindset, changing everything to get a desired outcome? If you ask them the question, they'll give you the information, and now you just have to show them why you're the perfect person for this.
I think, one of the things, if you're interested in a career in cyber, I'm going to tell you, make sure that you have passionate curiosity, that you love to learn, because this is the field where you have to be on your toes all the time. You have to be sort of ahead of the threat actor. You have to know more. You have to be on top of what's going on. So I always like to think, and maybe it's my COO background, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You have to have a plan. What's your goal? You have a 1-year goal, 6-month goal, 5-year goal, 10-year goal. Write it down. What do you want to do? What do you want to, and if you don't know what it takes to do this, I got to tell you, and I'm in a senior, place in my career at this point, but even when I came into this industry 8 years ago, when I started to learn about it, and right before I joined, it was a month before, I immersed myself in everything that was to do with cybersecurity. What do I need to do? What is a CISO? What is this? All of that, like to the point where I came in and I was like, oh, I'm ready. I could be a CISO at this point. You have to sort of put yourself where you want to be mentally and having a growth mindset. So when even before you go to an interview, when everything you're approaching, like research, intranet is like a humongous library of information, videos, concepts are explained. There's no excuse. There's so much information out there. Leverage that information. Be prepared when you're going to have a conversation with seek networks. There's all these networks that provide support, that provide tools, that provide free training, that provide information on interviewing, things that you should know. And then be bold. I can't tell you how many people send me a message on LinkedIn introducing themselves. There was a young lady who actually sent me a LinkedIn message yesterday to say that she actually had to work and she couldn't attend, but that she was going to watch the recording. And I was so touched by the fact that she went and did that. So I responded to her and I said, send me your email. I want to talk to you. And I said, I'm going to send you some information. Like, to me, the fact that she took that step, she doesn't know me. That was bold, right? Love it. I was like, I want to talk to you, because that to me is a leader.
I agree with Jason and Liz. Tremendous insight. I'm going to provide a little tweak into my insight a little bit. It's just that sometimes we forget that the cybersecurity world is still nascent. Think about 70s, 80s, 90s. You see the evolution, right? 2000s. And 2010, and you can see how it's growing, how it's moving into, this trajectory of going up. So what I'm saying, this background information to say, if you go into any other career path, whether you want to be a lawyer, want to be a doctor, manufacturing, you name it, those are well-established career paths, with frameworks behind them, structures behind them, parameters that you have to follow, and so forth. What makes cybersecurity so innovative is that it allows you to basically be creative across the board.
Yes.
Right. And no one's going to come at you and slap you in the hand and say, no, you shouldn't do that. Of course, unless you do something illegal. But I'm talking about promoting ideas.
Yes.
To improve the program or come up with your own innovative ways to make something better. Right. And not only that, but also Liz mentioned resources available that are there to help you, right? but you have to put the work in, right, to ensure that not only you come prepared to a table, but the folks will understand that your creativity matters. And not only matters, but it's also appreciated, right? And of course, with appreciation comes compensation, right? You'll be well compensated because the community, the organization, whether it's the private sector or the federal government, will appreciate that innovative thinking, that out-of-the-box thinking that we have as Latinos that come from backgrounds with limited resources and limited means to success. And we made it, right? We overcame obstacles that, were typically there for us because, of our backgrounds and first-generation Hispanics and whatnot. Right. But at the end of the day, this environment, this organization, this career path will test your mettle. Bottom line, it will test your mettle. And if you have the can-do attitude, right, to pursue it, you will make it. As a hiring manager, I want to look at someone's resume. Yes, I'm going to look at their certifications, A+, Security+, CEH, all of that. I'm like, great, glad you read a book. You went to a training class. You heard something and it maybe stuck with you. But what I'm really going to ask them is how passionate they are about this job that they're seeking with me, right? And I want to know what's driving them. Why did they apply? I want to know where the 5-year goal that Liz kind of alluded to in terms of where they want to go, because I want to know how I can help you get there. That's what I want to know, right? Because if you come into me with a can-do attitude and the willingness to succeed, I'm going to pave the way so you can make it. I want you to be the CIO. I want you to be the CISO. I want you to be the new business owner somewhere, because we're here to help you move up. We already made it to the top, right? So we're not going to stop you. We're not going to stifle you. We're going to make sure that we help you move up in the career ladder. And this is a unique environment where you typically wouldn't find it in any other career environment. Again, lawyers, doctors, whatever, they're going to have their set things going and you can never make it past a certain point. But in this environment, sky's the limit. And that's what I propose. And that's what I promote every time I do hiring events and hiring opportunities.
But I just want to circle back really quick because there's 2 points I want to add. One is that when I do hiring for everyone, there's 3 things I look for: passion, curiosity, and character. Because those are the 3 things that you can't fake. You either have it or you don't. And that's it. It's indelible. So those are the most important things to me. I will forego someone with amazing experience that has no passion, curiosity, or character. And I will hire someone with no experience as long as they have those passion, curiosity, character. And another kind of just little tip of gotcha, if you will, because Liz had mentioned about the LinkedIn and the woman had written to her. And a lot of times people go and just connect with someone on LinkedIn or try to connect with someone on LinkedIn. How many of those you think everybody gets a day? Stand out, send a note, make it something personal.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's going to make them want to respond. I get 50 million of these a day. Liz, I know you probably get as many, if not more, right? Omar, same thing.
Yeah.
None of them stand out. It's like, okay, what do you want from me? You either want money from the company for the position I'm at, or you want to sell me on something, or you want me to join this. There's never a good reason. But when someone turns around and says, hey, I've seen what you've done. It's incredible. I really would love to just get some advice. Or, hey, I saw you speaking at CyberWarriors. It was what you said about blah, blah, blah was just so impactful to me. I would love it if I could just connect with you, or even, dare I say, get some time with you. That's going to make you stand out from the crowd. That approach, look, let's be realistic. When you get a job, you're betting on that leader to do the right thing. You're betting on that leader to have vision, to carry you along and take care of you. But the reality of it is that if someone's going to change the world, why can't it be you? If you're going to bet on someone, why can't you bet on yourself? So go after that and do what you need to do, but make sure you stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, and I think that taking the time to make it personal is really important. I mean, you need to understand what are the drivers for the person that you're writing to. I think it's important to understand a little bit about their background, right? What are some of the events and activities that they're passionate about and they're involved in? And then, as you mentioned, Liz, you got to be bold, right? I think one of the most powerful words in the dictionary is help. Can you help me? But you got to be vulnerable. You got to be willing to do it. And I think most importantly, you got to be willing to take that help, because more often people ask for help and then you give them an answer, but that answer requires work. Imagine that. You then got to do all these tasks that perhaps you were not expecting to do, that perhaps you don't fully understand, but yet it's like your parents. It's like, hey, this is what you need to do in order for you to be successful. And at 13 years old, you're looking at your parents like they got 6 heads because you don't get it. It's not that different when you're in an early career, and someone who takes the time to respond and gives you advice, more than likely that person's going to be there to support you. If you simply follow through on that, hey, I followed through, I did what you said, here's the results that I got, continue to engage. And that's when you start to build a relationship and you start to build an emotional connection. And once you have that emotional connection, that person is much more likely to also want to open up their network. Right. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Omar, I see you had some thoughts.
Yeah, no, you hit, you touch on a very, very poignant point that oftentimes goes overlooked as part of our culture. And I'm glad that you brought it up, which is, we from childhood, is like, suck it in, take it like a man. Boys don't cry, whatever, and we just simply are so accustomed in our culture to just suck it up, take it in, but don't ask anybody. Because if you do, oh my God, that means you don't know what you're doing, or it's
helpless or whatever.
It's frowned upon,
Yep.
And here's the thing that you touch on in this specific, cybersecurity career, is that people are very introvert, right? But they will certainly help you if you ask. But there's not that many extroverts that come at you and be like, hey, do you need help? Right? To Rainier's point, you have to realize, let's just be frank with everyone here. As senior leaders, let's just be frank. There was a point in our career path where we reach a point, we say, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know how to do this one thing. I'm going to reach out to these other folks that know what they're doing and ask them for help. I'm going to give you one quick example. I don't want to derail the agenda, but it's very important that we hit on that. So last year, I graduated with a Master of Science degree. It was a senior leader in the DOD. Thank you.
Nice.
For the fans.
Nice.
And imagine I'm sitting here, the only Hispanic in a cohort of like 50 folks, military captains, Marine Corps, Air Force, everybody's in there, Department of State, CIA, FBI, you name it, right? And so one of the project was about the situation between China and Taiwan. Do I know anything about what's going on in Taiwan and China? Hell no. I'm sorry. No, I don't know. No idea.
Both are intelligence now.
Right. But guess who was the student in my cohort? A Taiwanese captain from the Taiwanese Navy. So guess what I did? Hey, buddy, can we talk? Sat down with him. He gave me a full background introduction of everything that's happened in geopolitical. I spoke to the Department of State attaché that was in class that was also stationed in Taiwan. And guess what? I got an A in the report. Mind you, I had no clue what I was doing prior to that, but I realized there's other people here that know information that I don't have. And so you have to bring down the whole mindset, right? It's almost like you're como que tienen amarrado.
Yeah.
It's like from birth, you're like, no, don't ask for help. It's bad. Take that away. Dispel it. Destroy it. Open your mind and realize in cybersecurity, you're just not going to know everything. So what you have to do is reach out and partner with those folks that are really, really good, right? And understand the concepts. So that way together, we help each other.
Yeah.
Sorry, Renee, I didn't mean to derail, but I have to jump in on that.
I have to say something. I'm sorry. I have to, because this is too good. Because it applies so much to our culture. Omar, spot on. And I want to touch this because this is actually something I talk to a lot of the people that I mentor. Confidence is one thing. Ego is something very different. And I'm going to tell you the difference. Difference between confidence and ego is success and self-sabotage. So if you are too proud to ask for questions, you're too proud to go back and ask and inquire because you don't want to seem vulnerable, it literally is self-sabotage. If you're confident, then you're confident to ask questions, because that tells me that you care about the subject, you want to learn, and you want to put out your best product, your best work. So really remember that. The difference between confidence and ego is success and self-sabotage. And if you can just remember those principles, you'll be very, very, very successful.
And to piggyback.
Sorry, I just had to say that. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one last piece.
Right
is because the two most powerful words in the English language are next time.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of it is next time gives you hope. It gives you aspirations. It gives you the ability to learn from what you did that wasn't successful, because nothing teaches you skills and lessons like failure, the least of which is to not do it that way again. But so you take next time. I didn't do it right this time. The approach that I was taking was incorrect. I was being egotistical. I wasn't asking for help, whatever it is. The amazing part is next time you have the opportunity to change that. You start afresh and you could make the changes so that you start implementing the great lessons and nuggets and pearls of information and wisdom that Omar and Liz are giving you. So hopefully you could take those and implement them for next time and make next time the success story.
I love it. I love it. Hey, we have a question from the audience, and I just wanted to put it on the table. And the question goes as follows. Every HR employee who uses terminology such as DEI or inclusivity, who I have interviewed with, has also told me, you don't look Hispanic. How do I handle this situation in the future?
That's ignorance.
The person mentions that this is someone who grew up in diverse neighborhoods, and that, you know, Spanish was his first language. Also a veteran with an MBA, and he's finding that companies that are always talking about diversity are the ones that are quickest to also not practice what they preach.
Can I take that, please?
Go for it.
I would probably say that's interesting, because you don't sound like an HR professional to me either.
Ooh.
I'm a little confused about your question. So why don't you please help me understand your question? What am I supposed to look like? I'm sorry. Can you help clarify? I'm not really understanding your point, and I would just leave it at that.
Yes.
Let that marinate for a little bit.
Let that marinate. What should I look like?
Yes, because I get that all the time. I am literally as blanquito as you could be, right? If I didn't tell people that I am Latino and proud of it, you would never know.
Oh, they know I am.
Yeah. When I go to the interview,
Loud
or
and
people,
proud.
they go, "You're really Hispanic? You're Latino? I didn't know that." Like,
Tell him
you
to
don't
ask
look
me. I
Latino.
know, Jason.
So you don't look Latino. And my question is, well, what does a Latino look like?
Yeah.
And at that point,
now, Liz, here's the thing, though, right? I mean, the concern is that the HR person, if the person just puts it out there, like, well, what should I look like? The HR person is gonna shut them. It's gonna shut them off at the interview.
Okay, so let me tell you this. If I interview at an organization and the HR person asks me that question, after I answer with what I just said, I would thank the person and I'd say, "Have a wonderful day." I don't want to work for a company like that.
Yeah.
And this is where the confidence comes in. And I really want people to take that in, right?
Yeah.
We have choices. We have opportunity. And this goes back to why you need and must work harder on yourself than on your job. Because if you just focus on just, I'm just going to be the best at my job, blah, 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 you're not upgrading your skill set, then you're not increasing your value. You tell me the last time you saw a commercial for a Bentley on sale for President's Day. Have you ever seen that? You won't. Because if you have the money, you'll know where to find it. And equally, if you have the value and you put yourself out there and people know who you are and you're networking and you're building on your skill set and you're doing everything you have to do, then you don't have to put up with that. Because listen, it may not even be a reflection of the organization. It just may be that that person lacks self-awareness, which is another complete other issue.
Yeah.
But this is the country of opportunity. There's 500. I mean, think about the numbers of open cybersecurity roles out there. So much opportunity. I would say next. I wouldn't even entertain a conversation like that. You know your value is my point.
I love it.
I agree with Liz on that, Rainier. And you know your value in cybersecurity careers. There's many ways, many opportunities. And that's just one door that you touch on a single day. There are multiple doors that can open up, and the fact that they even made that reference means that they're ignorant to really who we are.
That's right. Right.
I call myself an honorary Puerto Rican because everyone says you're Puerto Rican. I'm like, no, I'm not. But they say, oh, you're light skinned. What does that mean?
Everybody thinks I'm Dominican.
And then you're Dominican, right?
So people we're all one. It's fine.
People just don't understand the history of how we became who we are as a mixed culture. Melting pot of different cultures and whatnot. So when that happens, I have a personal experience, and I tend to have sympathy or empathy for those that unfortunately lack that context.
Self-awareness, that's right.
In 2005, I was a supervisor at a private company that was doing work in Dulles Airport. And ICE did a raid. ICE came in, did a raid, and you can see people just fleeing the construction site. And then all my peers are Caucasian, white managers. And so one of them looked at me and say, run? And I said, why would I run? And I said, well, aren't you Mexican? And he said, I was like, what? No, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm not a Mexican. He said, well, didn't you cross the Rio Grande? I was like, what?
Oh my God.
Dude, I don't know what to do with you. Should I get mad at you or just trying to help you? So I took empathy and I give him an education instead of getting mad. Of course, I left the job. I move on, right? Because I realized the culture wasn't just embracing, right? But, to the questioning, you have to know your value, and you can either take empathy or you can just move on. Whatever the case may be, it's up to you. I made a personal decision, to not get mad at the person because he genuinely was ignorant. And I just try to help him. You can tell when someone is genuinely ignorant, and you can tell when someone is trying to belittle you in the tone or how they're speaking to you. Right? And so I was able to recognize that he was just genuinely ignorant because I worked with this person for several months, But again, to Liz's point, right? You're valuable, right? Don't let anyone take that away from you. You matter. Don't let anyone take that away from you.
Absolutely. And so one of the key takeaways from this conversation is that you have value, and what are some of the things that continue to develop your value, right? We've all heard the term that your network is your net worth. And so how do you build on that, right? We were talking about that, Jason, in the last couple of days. I remember you used that phrase in our prep call for this event. What are some of those ways to build your network, to strengthen the relationships that you have so that you don't have to put up with things that way, like that, and that you continuously not only have options, but have those options coming to you as a professional?
So the way I view it is there's several components to this. One is sponsorship, right? Prior to that, you're going to listen to your abuela. And when your abuela would tell you, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you what you are. Okay. So you need to make sure that you're associating with the correct people. Hence the statement, your network will influence your net worth. Now, you need to have a section of various peers, if you will. So you need coaching, you need mentorship, and you need sponsorship. And that's mentor can be transitioned to a sponsor, or it could be people that you've met along the way who think highly of you, that are willing to advocate for you. You need to make sure your network is super strong and always exercised. What I mean by that is keep the relationship there, keep in contact, say hello, make sure that it's it's still there, and you're keeping that communication going. It's not just because you want something from them. It's just because they're good people. You learn from them. Hopefully they learn from you. How do you get on their radar? Well, getting on the radar is an entirely different thing. Find out what they're passionate about. Find out what moves them and try to see how you can get involved to help them move the needle. Now, if it's in your organization, it's a little easier. Outside of your organization, a little bit more difficult, but still very, very doable. The other thing about it is have a board of directors for your own career, people that you can take questions to and ask them, and they will give you the unvarnished truth. Either you're right, you're wrong, this is the direction for you, don't go that route, that was not a good route for you, here's the reasons why, or I know people, and maybe they open their network to you. But you need to invest in that coaching, mentorship, and sponsorship in order to actually position yourself for success. It is paramount. Without it, you will not be successful, or it's very unlikely for you to be successful.
I want to jump in on that, Rainier. It's a very good question. I'm glad you brought it up because it does, in a way, represent the uniqueness of cybersecurity. Let's talk about legal and lawyers and doctors. You can be you have a ton of lawyers, but are you a renowned lawyer? You can be a good doctor, but you're a renowned doctor. And in cybersecurity, it's like, hey, you can build networks. People's skills are paramount. People will recognize you for your talent. And people will recognize you for, how you contribute to the organization. So this is a unique environment where you can't just fake the funk, man. You can't just be like gaslighting people up. Like people will know if you're really good at what you do because you know what you're doing. Or if you just, como te digo, dando mentira. Entonces, one of the things is that once you're recognized as the industry leader because they've seen your work, they see that you can deliver, and they see that you understand what needs to happen, the doors will open up. Because this environment is about show me what you know, and we can be friends and we can work together, right? Depending on skill sets, right, and talent. But along the lines of what Jason was saying, and I'm sure Liz will chime in on that, right? You have to stop being an introvert. You have to figure out a way to reach out and make those connections. One of the greatest things about the internet is it connected the world, right? But it's still synthetic. There's no soul behind it. Like you have to make that personal approach.
And let me ask you a question, Omar, just to dive in, because we have a question from the audience, someone who's first generation Mexican American. They went through our boot camp, and they're aware of the statistics of cyber in the workforce. What advice would you give someone who is first generation, who perhaps doesn't have the family connections? What are some of the things that people that are really trying to get into the career, like how do they set up those initial relationships? How do they do that?
Yeah, so I think Jason alluded to that board of directors, which is, surround yourself by people that actually are also like, if he went to the boot camp, that means this person should have made relationship with those students that are now fanning out and moving out to the world. They're going to connect with other people that are going to be knowledgeable in specific skill sets or specific job industries. And then you connect with them and the network continues to grow and continues to grow. If you try to do this individual approach, I graduated, I got my degree, I'm going to go solo and pursue my dream, don't talk to anybody, you're going to fail and you're not going to find doors open. You have to build relationships, and those relationships will open doors. And in the case of, I think Jason alluded to, using social media to introduce yourself and make the connections, make it personal, make it relatable, right? Don't just say, look at my resume, like get to really at a more personal level to understand, and also attend those events that are open to the public. So that way you can approach those, subject matter experts, CIOs, CISOs, COOs, and those people that are coming into those events. And they are talking about their experience and opportunities with their respective organizations, companies, federal government. Approach them, shake their hand and say, hey, that was wonderful. I appreciated your conversation. How can I talk to you? I really want to know more about your company. That takes people skills and can do attitude.
And if I could add to that, and I apologize, my laptop died. So what I did hear from my fellow panelists, which is 100%, and I think one of the things in cyber that a lot of people, there's this misconception that, you have to be so technical. Don't forget, cybersecurity is a business problem, which means it's not technology. It's not all technology. Yes, you need, technical skills, emerging technology skills, and all the rest. But you need to be able to communicate complex problems and situations and with people who are not technical. So a big key is brush up on your communication skills. If there's courses that you can take on presenting, when you get to a certain level in a technology organization or in any organization, you get a P&L, which means like you get money to run your staff and buy things and what have you. And you have to get into the habit of asking for money. So almost like when you're when you're growing up and you're asking, hey, I want a pair of sneakers. I want, you got to have your game on. And the better you are able to communicate with everyone, like on a dime, you maybe get called into a meeting and they want to talk about something that's going on. You got to have a couple of things: the communication, collaboration, because when you're in security, you have to not just communicate with someone in your little space. You have to communicate with people across other lines: marketing, technology, legal, all these different areas, right? Risk, all these different areas. So your ability to comfortably and confidently speak your mind, ask for things, talk about complex situations, in some cases, deliver scary news to people in a way that doesn't cause panic and heart attacks and all that kind of stuff. That's really, really, really critical. Watch people who speak well, study them, ask them questions, take an improv class. It works like a charm.
Yes.
Like things like that are very critical, and people don't tell you that.
Yes.
So that's really important. Yeah.
I want to chime in on that real quick. Sorry, Jason, just real quick. Liz, I'm telling you, you're 1,000%. Communication is paramount. One of the key lessons I learned during my senior year in college, this is 2004, I had a project management class, and the professor said, when you graduate, you need to learn how to speak English. I don't mean it like English. It means to Liz's point. Don't get down into technical, how about Java works or Python and whatever. If you're going to talk to your CIO, it's a business approach. They want to know, if this server goes down, what are the financial impacts to me as a business owner, right? Mm-hmm. And that lesson, you have no idea how much it helped me throughout my whole career. Learning how to translate the technical acumen that we work with on a daily basis into regular, plain English, so we can help understand. And I'll give you one example before I go, because I know we're almost out of time. When the Sony hack happened, I was basically in charge of a lot of incident response activities, and I got to brief the DHS secretary. Now, let's just be real here, folks. Political people are not technical. So I wasn't going to try to explain to this guy, what a spear phishing email is, or what a distributed out
service. Not at that time.
This guy is a lawyer appointed by the White House. He doesn't know. So the only way we were able to help him understand was, this is Jay Johnson, DHS Secretary Jay Johnson.
No, but I'm saying, it's not,
they
don't want to know. That's not.
They don't want
they don't. They want you to fix it.
They don't care.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had to get away from all of this work that with the technical and just focus on what just happened and explain it at a very, very
basic, comprehensive.
Yeah. You know how a thief knocks on the door and then they throw a rock through the window and they break and then they open the door from inside? That's the analogy that I have to use. And he was like, I get it now.
Yeah. True.
So, and one thing I wanted to add, because this is the other aspect of this, is, let's say you get someone's attention. Let's say you got them, you get the job, they took a gamble on you, and you're thinking, okay, now I have to do my job. No, you have to do your job better than anybody else. And the key thing is this. So there's this woman that I hired straight out of college, 2017 at SHIP in Cleveland, Ohio. She starts with the company, and I mentor her every week for years. She's, well, not years later. It's only 5 years since, 6 years since. She joined a number of things that I was involved in, that I was passionate about. And every time something came up, who could take this on? I got it. Who could do it? I got it. And she got to know me so well that when I would ask her to deliver something, she just wouldn't deliver that. She would know my next 3 questions and would deliver those. So what happens is now when anything comes up, I go, oh, no, give it to her. She's got it. When I switched roles and I took the role that I'm in now, switched companies, switched roles, everything, build your organization. My first hire was her. She's on my leadership team. By age, she should not be there. By experience and value, she is the cornerstone of my leadership team. So what she proved to me was that I can always count on her. It doesn't matter time, it doesn't matter day, it doesn't matter the situation. If I need something, she's got my back. And guess what? She will always be considered for great reviews, for promotion, for larger platforms, for any opportunity I could put her in, because she always takes care of me.
And is she taking on the fancy, sexy projects, Jason, or is she simply taking care of business and handling what comes her way?
She's building a program, an application for me that is leveraging a data lake, and she's a data scientist as well. I went and I made sure the company's paid for all of her education. And so what she's doing is we're running artificial intelligence against our data lake, our historical data, to do predictive analytics on how we would fare in a cyber attack, in a cyber resilience scenario, in a data center scenario. No one else on the street is doing this, and we're building it out from scratch, and she's leading it.
But my point is that she took on that role.
Oh, yes.
You invested in her because she's someone who gets it done, who is not necessarily saying, well, this is what I want, this is what I need, but rather coming to you as a leader and saying, Jason, what do you need?
Yes.
What does the business need?
Yes.
And how can I take care of business? Yes. And because of that, she's at the point where, and I think that that's really important, and we'll leave that as our closing thoughts because we are out of time. But I think that that's the key takeaway here, friends. I think that one, how do you come together as a community, right? How do you pull up? How do you push up and pull up? How do you understand that your network is your net worth? How do you band together as a community? But at the same time, you have to be comfortable following in order for you to develop into a good leader. And you have to understand that there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable assignments coming your way because nobody else wants to do it. And that is the opportunity for you to shine because you get it done. So my friends, Liz, Jason, Omar, it's been an absolute delight and a pleasure. I know we've got some more questions coming out of the audience. I think we've run out of time, but we're definitely going to be publishing this recording on LinkedIn and other social media. So please, as that comes out in the next few days, just go on there and post your questions there. All the folks on the panel will be following up and reading and answering questions. So please continue to engage with us and
share it with other people. Right? Yeah. It's not just us. We're giving some thoughts and stuff, but you play a role as well. So share what you learned today.
Yes, absolutely. Folks, thank you for Caffeine's for the Appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Un fuerte abrazo, que tengan un buen día.